G'day everyone, welcome to another CSBP Fertilisers Market Update. I'm Grey Johnston and joined as ever by our Sales Strategy and Reliability Manager, Ben Sudlow. Hello Ben.
Hello Grey.
Welcome to another market update, and let's jump into our favourite topic of seaborne urea, because there's a bit been happening in the global market.
There is, Grey, well sort of almost as not, and that's been the sort of story of the last couple of updates we've done, is that there's almost been no activity. And we've talked for the last two sessions about India coming in and buying. They haven't done, prices have drifted down. We're probably down since we last spoke, 15 to 25 US dollars a tonne. And having spoken to a lot of traders in the last couple of weeks about what's going to happen, on one hand they're saying, look, India comes in, they put a floor in the market, the prices drift down until they come in, they pick up a whole lot of volume. That fills the order book for the near term, and then prices stabilise and possibly move up. And then we heard from another trader this morning a view of, well, maybe that puts a floor in the market and maybe there's not enough demand globally to see prices move. So we'll wait and see. But right now, the market's clearly waiting for what India does next on the tender. And perhaps between now and when we speak next time, something will happen and one of those traders will be correct.
Right, well, we'll certainly keep our finger on the pulse, and I guess to me that sounds like a symptom of a market where supply and demand are reasonably finely balanced, as we've been talking about for almost a year now.
Yeah, quite right, Grey.
We often talk about the connection or otherwise between the urea market and the seaborne Flexi-N market.
Yep.
Probably there has been a dislocation between those markets over recent months. Can you give us an update on what's happening in Flexi-N?
So we've talked for some months now about how significantly underpriced Flexi-N has been, and with urea now sort of softening somewhat, Flexi-N prices have moved up, and the gap between them is now back to what it probably in history is probably a typical gap between the two of them, maybe 20 to 25% premium on N basis of Flexi-N or UAN over urea. Now that's probably pretty much sitting where things were pre the invasion of Ukraine by Russia back in 22.
Yeah, and so the upshot of that for farmers in Western Australia at CSBP, we've moved our pricing to reflect those trends. So our urea prices sort of come down broadly $20, and Flexi-N price has gone up about $50 since the last time we caught up. But as always, jump on our website, csbpfertilisers.com/fertilisers/prices to get in touch with our current list price for a small volume on the day, or get in touch with your account manager for a more sophisticated bundle of products. Turning then to global supply, local pricing, local supply, and we've been talking berth congestion. We're now right in the thick of it, or potentially about to be in the thick of it. Can you give us an update on what's happening in the local market, and has any of that been impacted by some of the good rainfall we've seen in particular areas of the grain growing areas over the last couple of days?
Yeah, look, the rainfall of last week does excite the market somewhat. I mean, it's very nice to see some of the southern areas and eastern areas of the state to get some rain and hopefully put a bit of moisture in the soil and give some optimism that seeding can start perhaps sooner rather than later. So the way we look at that is probably the consequence on, have we got enough product of various products? Is it going to be here in the right time? And probably just making sure, is that going to bring around a change in crop type? And a few things that particularly have come to mind in this circumstance is, firstly, if we get an early rain, perhaps maybe there's perhaps more canola might go in, particularly as that rain went through that sort of western and southern coastal area. We look at what we've got available as far as NS range and what we can do to make sure we've got adequate supplies of that. We're almost now getting too late to react to that, but we're doing what we can to perhaps manufacture a bit more or top up a very large ship. And then second one, in terms of total nitrogen demand, which includes your NS and urea and your Flexi-N, is will that demand in fact come forward a little bit now? We need some more rain in the north and a couple of rainfall events in April to get things really moving. If it is an early breaking year where you get early May nitrogen application, at the same time you're actually still getting crop put in, and then trying to bring forward what might be nitrogen demand by 2 or 3 weeks, and really means that adjusting your plans pretty rapidly to try and bring product through the ports quickly.
Certainly, if you look at how the market has reacted in terms of beginning to pick up cropping compounds, whether it's the messages we've been sharing about potential congestion, availability of product, or whether it's response to that rainfall, we're certainly seeing volumes start to fly out the door.
Yeah, and look, the port congestion, we've really talked about that at length for some months now, Grey, and just one thing we haven't sort of expanded on is we've really spoke about the challenge here at Kwinana, and the Kwinana berth closes next Monday for 2 weeks till the 6th of April, so that shuts both sides of the berth here in Kwinana. And the challenge, if you haven't got in beforehand, you're waiting then till at best sort of the second week in April, if not longer, to get more shipments through. There's another 2 berth closures around the coast as well. First 2 weeks in May, Geraldton berth is also closing for maintenance. and the last week in May, early June, the Esperance berth is closing for maintenance as well. So if it's not challenging enough to get product through to meet a normal demand, perhaps an earlier demand, but then you throw in 3 berth closures, which are really important to meeting our customers' needs, this is really a year for it.
We're always sharing the message, the best way of making sure you've got fertiliser supplies to get it on farm and have it on hand, but it sounds like that message has never been so true as it is today.
Quite right.
So a pertinent message there on nitrogen, and could nitrogen demand come early? And it sounds like there's some, the timing of those berth closures at Geraldton and Esperance you talked about could certainly impact nitrogen supply. But cropping phosphates, I mentioned it just before, we're really seeing collections and appointments for those products ramp up, and from the sound of things around the traps, people are really talking about seeding in the next couple of weeks. So also, we start to turn our attention very quickly to nitrogen, but we don't want to lose focus on making sure that cropping phosphate volume gets out the door as well.
Exactly, Grey. Yeah.
We've covered global urea, global Flexi-N, and the various challenges of local supply and reacting to rainfall at this time of year. Anything else we should be covering, Ben?
That's probably enough for today, Grey.
On that bombshell, we'll wind it up. Thank you all again for joining us, and we'll see you out there in Fertiliser World soon. Bye-bye.
This podcast is provided as general information only. The content of this podcast is not a recommendation and has been prepared without taking your objectives or circumstances into account. Before acting on the content of this, you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances and seek independent advice.